All right, folks. In this video, we're going to do a rundown of everything that we've done so far in this unit, so I'm going to call this mixed practice. Now, in addition to your notes, there are a couple things that I think will be really helpful and really handy for you to have close by as we go through this video. I'm going to encourage you to grab your calculator. Calculator is the first thing that you're going to want. Second thing that you're going to want is a sticky note, and I'll show you how I'm going to use that sticky note as we go through this video. All right, so first things first, just a reminder that up until this point there are really four different shapes that we've looked at so far with respect to finding volumes. The first shape that we've looked at so far is the triangular prism. Remember that the triangular prism has triangles for bases. So that's kind of what the triangular prism looks like. And when we see that, the formula that we use to find volume is equal to area of the base times the height. Or sometimes we use the capital letter B to represent area of the base times the height. So that's the triangular prism. The next one that we looked at was the rectangular prism. And I think about the rectangular prism like a box. And the formula that we use to find the volume of a rectangular prism is our good friend volume is equal to length times width times height. That's my favorite one. The third one that we've looked at so far is the cylinder. Remember, the cylinder has those circles for the top and bottom. And the formula that we use to find the volume of a cylinder is volume is equal to pi times r squared times h. And the last shape that we've looked at so far has been the cone. I always think about ice cream and snow cones. I get hungry when I think about cones. So there's a picture of what the cone looks like. And the formula that we're going to use to find volume of a cone is volume is equal to 1/3 times pi times r squared times h. So four different shapes, four different formulas. I think the trickiest part of this whole process is determining what shape we're working with and therefore what formula do we use. And I think that this is where that sticky note can come in real handy. What I did is I took a sticky note, and on my sticky note I put those four shapes and those four formulas so that I can move my sticky note from page to page in my notes, and I can move my sticky note from page to page as I'm doing the practice problems. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. Why don't you go ahead and pause also, and we'll get your sticky note out and get it made, and then you'll have that sticky note that you can take with you wherever you want to go and solve these problems. All right, so here's my sticky note. I've got the four different shapes on here. I've got the triangular prism with that formula volume is equal to capital B, the area of the base, times the height. I've got my rectangular prism, my length times width times height for the volume. I've got my cylinder, volume is equal to pi times r squared times h. And then lastly, I've got my cone, volume is equal to the 1/3 times the pi times the r squared times the h. And again, I would, if I were you, I would pause the video until you can get that sticky note made. And then once you've got that sticky note made, you can go ahead and move forward with the video. All right, so let's go ahead and let's jump into some examples. Example 1, I'm going to say is a figure that looks like this. And we're going to be finding for all of these finding volumes. So again, I have to first of all determine exactly what shape it is or what kind of figure it is. And when I look at this figure, I see that it has bases that are in the shape of triangles. So that tells me that the figure that I'm working with in this instance is a triangular prism, and therefore the formula that I want to use is volume is equal to area of the base times the height. So that's the one that I'm going to go ahead and put down on my paper. My base is a triangle, so I want to go ahead and begin by finding the area of that triangle. So remember, formula for area of a triangle is 1/2 times base times height. I go back and I changed area to a V by mistake. There we go. So my capital B, or area of my base in this formula, is the area of that triangle, or 10, times the height of my prism. Remember, the height of the prism is going to be that distance between, or that distance that connects your two triangles, so 8. So the volume for this triangular prism is 80 inches cubed, or if you prefer, 80 cubic inches. They're both two different ways of saying the exact same thing. Beautiful. All right, I'm going to drag my sticky note down so I'll have it with me for the next problem. The next example is going to be a figure that looks like this. So again, the hardest part of this whole process is determining which formula it is that I'm going to use, but when I consult my little cheat sheet with all my sticky notes, or my little sticky note with all my formulas, I see that this guy is a cylinder, and because he's a cylinder, I'm going to use the formula volume is equal to pi times r squared times h. So I'm going to go ahead and write that formula down. And now I'm going to substitute into the formula everything I know from the picture. Pi doesn't change, but r is going to become 2, and we were squaring it, so it's 2 squared, times the height. Remember, the height is going to be the distance between those two circular bases, which in this case is 5. And there are a couple different ways that they might ask this question, and you have to be careful and be on the lookout. If they ask for it in terms of pi, then when I get my calculator out, I'm going to put into my calculator everything except the pi. So I'm not going to put in the pi, but I am going to put in the 2 squared times the 5. So let me dig out my calculator. I want 2 squared times the 5. So 20. And at this point, I haven't multiplied times the pi yet, so the pi would still be in my answer. And I can say feet cubed or cubic feet, but that's if they ask for your answer in terms of pi. Remember, in terms of pi means there's a pi in your answer. And maybe they ask for it to the nearest tenth of a cubic foot. If they ask for it to the nearest tenth of a cubic foot, Then I'm going to get my calculator out and I'm going to multiply the 20 times the pi in my calculator. Or in other words, the pi times the 2 squared times the 5. And I'm going to make sure that I use that pi button right in the bottom left corner of my calculator. So 62.8. So again, that would be when rounded to the nearest tenth. And again, that means that there is no pi in my answer. So those formulas with the pi's in them can be a little bit tricky depending on whether they want it in terms of pi or whether they want you to round your answer. All right, I'm going to go ahead and keep on dragging my sticky note with me. And if you need to, just go up to the top of a new page or on the back of this page. It really doesn't make a difference. But I'm going to call this one example 3. And there's what the picture looks like for example 3. So again, I think the most difficult part of this and the most important part is deciding which formula it is that you're going to use. So when looking at my cheat sheet over here on my little sticky note, I can see that the figure that this is the cone, and the formula, the correct formula to use for the volume of a cone is 1/3 times pi times r squared times h. And now that I've decided what formula it is that I'm going to use, I'm all set to go ahead and substitute my values into the formula. So the 1/3 and the pi don't change. But my radius here is 6, and I want to square it times the height of the cone, which is 20. And again, they might ask for this answer one of two different ways. They might ask for it in terms of pi. And if they ask for it in terms of pi, then I'm going to get my calculator out and I'm going to substitute everything except the pi into my calculator. So into my calculator, I'm going to type 1/3 times 6 squared times 20. And I want you to get your calculator out and I want you to type this in there also. So 1/3 times 6 raised to the second power times 20. So 240, and we still haven't multiplied through times the pi yet. So this is 240 times pi cubic inches, or inches cubed. So again, that's what this answer looks like in terms of pi. When they ask for it in terms of pi, that means that there is indeed a pi in your answer. All right, so let me go ahead and move my sticky note. So just a reminder that this is what your answer is going to look like if they ask for it in terms of pi. In other words, there is a pi in your answer. And if they ask for it, say, rounded to the nearest cubic inch, then I'm going to get my calculator back out. And I'm going to type the whole 240 times pi. And remember, pi is down on the left-hand side of your calculator, almost at the bottom. So to the nearest cubic centimeter, that looks like it's going to be about 754 cubic centimeters. Sorry, I think we're in cubic inches. And again, that's if we're asked for it to the nearest cubic inch, so rounded. But note that the big difference here is that there is no pi in the answer. All right, let me grab my sticky note and move down the page. We're getting there, folks. One more we've got to go here. Example 4. This is what my picture looks like. And of course, this is my favorite one, the rectangular prism. So when I look at my little cheat sheet over here, he's my rectangular prism. Volume is equal to length times width times height. And this is the one that you've been doing since elementary school. It's everybody's favorite. When I get my calculator out and I type in 4 times 3 times 5, I end up with 60 cubic feet. Or if you want to say 60 cubic feet, they're two different ways of saying the exact same thing. Beautiful. All right, so I think if you've built that sticky note, that's going to be super helpful when you move into the Castle Learning assignment. You've got some practice to do on the Castle Learning. And the Castle Learning is number 10.7. And I think it's called Mixed Practice number 2. And of course, it goes without saying that Miss Andre and I both still really miss you. If you want or need help with any of the practice problems, remember you can always email us or feel free to stop into office hours on Teams. We're there live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 10 to 11, and we would absolutely love to see your face. Till then, stay well, stay healthy, miss you.